decks, one of the decks that I really like. He's playing against Andrew Jessup, playing Mono Blue Devotion, a deck that we've been seeing a lot in the feature match area.
Yeah, Mono Blue Devotion, of course, it's been a mainstay. It's not new at all, but the deck's good. There's a reason people keep playing it. It's very powerful, and it was a very popular choice this weekend. I think a lot of people, there are new cards. There's a lot of kind of gray area. We don't know what's going to happen. So I think a lot of people kind of leaned on decks they knew were good, and Mono Blue Devotion certainly a deck that not only is something you can trust in an unknown field, but also is a deck that actually does a pretty good job of punishing brews.
Yeah. So Dave is going to be on the play. He leads with a Temple, which we've seen a lot. He scries, and it looks like Andrew leads with a Judge's Familiar here.
Yeah, Andrew Jessup, of course, playing Mono Blue Devotion. Actually, his brother, Dan Jessup, playing Mono Black Devotion, is also playing a Win-An-In right now in an off-camera feature.
Ah, so pretty good day for the Jessup family.
For sure. Oh, yeah. I wonder if Mama Jessup's watching.
Yeah, I have to imagine she's watching.
One would hope.
Both players are calling, telling him they're in top 8 contention. So Dave Shiels just has a Godless Shrine, nothing else to commit to the board. No Pack Rat, which is probably the ideal card for him in this game match. So he just has to pass. Jessup further commits to his board, playing a Frostburn Weird this turn. So typical Mono Blue curve so far.
Yeah, and we saw a Sign in Blood there from Dave Shiels. That is true. That's one of the cards that has really kind of put these black mid-range decks kind of over the edge, I think. Notably on this board, there's some tension there because of that Judge's Familiar. Shields may want to play an untapped land and cast it, but actually he's just going to cast Lifebane Zombie instead. That seems like the stronger play on the curve here.
So Lifebane Zombie, obviously not great against Mono Blue Devotion in terms of stripping cards, but it does have Intimidate, so it's difficult for them to block. So if it gets into a situation where he needs to race them, Lifebane Zombie could be pretty effective. I know that in the typical Mono Black deck, Owen Turnwell used to talk about how this card was very good against Mono Blue decks.
Right, yeah, it's basically just unblockable, which is fine. That's all you're in the market for. And he's going to take a peek at a pretty solid hand there from Andrew Jessup. There was 2 Master of Waves, a Biden Defasa, Rapid Hybridization, and a Tidebinder Mage. Notably, no third land.
Yeah, so fortunately for Dave, it doesn't look like Andrew drew a third land this turn either. So, oh, no, it looks like he does have. So, doesn't have a 4th mana just yet, but obviously, Master Waves, Biden Defasa, those are the cards that Dave should probably be concerned with. Master Waves, not so much. He at least has ways to kill it. But Biden Defasa can be very problematic in this matchup.
Yeah, he has 3 very significant 4-drop threats, and he is going to actually use one of his mana to pump that Frostburn Weird. So that's going to turn off this play. But with that 3rd land, he actually did have the opportunity to Rapid Hybridization the zombie and then tap it down with Tidebinder Mage. Tap down the 3/3 beast.
That's right.
So that might have been a reasonable play on curve, but he's actually just going to hold the Rapid Hybridization instead. Wait for a juicier target, like, for example, that Obsidat that you can see sitting in Dave's hand.
So Dave draws Urborg, an M15 card that's been making somewhat of a splash here. We've been seeing it both in black-white mid-range as well as some other decks. It's actually kind of a very useful card because obviously you want to play Mutavault, but you still want to be able to cast all your spells. So certainly helps in the Mono Black Devotion decks, allowing you to cast Night Veil Spectre even if you have a Mutavault in play.
Oh, and it helps here too. These black-white decks, I think their biggest gain from M15 is their mana base. Not just Urborg, but also Caves of Quelos.
Yeah, definitely the Caves is probably the most important card because you don't have to play Guildgate anymworld
Right. Yeah. These decks they're color intensive with their spells. So they have of course Obsidat, but they also have Lifebane and Underworld connections requiring black. They have Elspeth requiring white. So the color demands are pretty strong, and as a result, as you mentioned, they are kind of forced into playing Guildgates to go with their temples. So now they get to come out a little faster, a little smoother.
So Dave's in a tough spot here. He's facing 3 creatures. Obviously, he knows that Andrew has a lot of powerful 4-drops in his hand. Hoping to dodge a land here from Andrew's side. Dave just passes the turn. He doesn't have any play to make.
Yeah, no sorcery speed play anyway. I don't know if we can see any removal there. I believe I caught a glimpse of a Hero's Downfall. So Dave, I think, hoping to get to interact with Andrew there. So if Andrew drew the land and gets to actually play the Master of Waves, Dave gets to deal with it immediately and not really lose any tempo over it.
So Andrew deciding what he wants to do here. A lot of decisions.
Yeah. Oh, he did. He does find the 4th land. So, yeah, this is tough. And what do you think here? Are you slamming Master or are you playing Biden?
I kind of like Biden here just because it allows you to generate some cards and Again, if he does have a removal spell, this is probably, you have to imagine he probably has a removal spell. So I kind of like biting here and just jamming, because worst case scenario, you trade with a Lifebane Zombie or Tidebinder Mage, but you're going to get a card anyway.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you're going to be up a card, even if, you know, if Dave does block one creature, remove another, or block two with the Mutavault and the Lifebane Zombie. I think you would love for that to happen, actually.
And again, you still have a Master in your hand, and you've upped your devotion count because of the Biden. So I kind of like just attacking here.
Yeah. And notably, I like not playing Master into 4 open mana.
Yeah.
Because that's going to give Dave, again, an opportunity to remove it while still using his mana for the turn efficiently. If you get him in a spot where he, like say next turn he taps out for Obstinate, then you play Master, well then you know what he's going to do on his next turn. He's going to untap and spend his mana playing the removal spell.
Yeah. At least you can kind of telegraph things a little differently that way. So Dave here in a tough spot. He has to figure out what he wants to do here. Does he want to just trade with Tidebinder Mage and then use a Hero's Downfall on a Judge's Familiar to keep Andrew from drawing any cards? But he knows he's got 2 Master Waves that are waiting for him in Andrew's hand. So not sure he can afford to just use a removal spell here on a creature.
Yeah, this is a really tough spot, particularly if Dave only has 1 removal spell. But we can see he has 2 actually. Hero's Downfall and Ultimate Price tucked back there. Of course, he can't Ultimate Price the Judge's Familiar, but he can Ultimate Price the Master. So I think it's reasonably safe here to go ahead and kill that Judge's Familiar. Blowing your universal removal on a 1/1 flyer feels weird. But it cantrips here in a weird way because it keeps Andrew from drawing a card.
You stop him from drawing a card, and potentially if he drew a 5th land, he can get an Obstinate into play as well. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like he did that. And
Sign and Blood, I believe.
Yeah, he has a Sign and Blood, and it looks like he still has that Ultimate Price along with a Lifebane Zombie. So he can make pretty good use of his mana here just the same with Sign and Blood and leaving up mana for Ultimate Price. He cannot Ultimate Price the Frostburn Weird, so he's not going to be able to stop the kind of the coastal piracy effect there, but he is still going to be able to leave up mana to remove Master of Waves once it shows up. Yeah. So it looks like he finally drew a 5th land. It's the Caves of Koilos. And he can actually play a Lifebane Zombie this turn if he wants to. Again, you mentioned he can't really stop the Frostburn Weird from attacking and netting Andrew 1 card.
Yeah. He actually knows 2 of the 3 cards in Andrew's hand. So the information from Lifebane Zombie, not so significant. He can also play his land, leave back Mutavault to block the Frostburn Weird, and use the mana to remove Master of Waves. He can block and then tap the Mutavault for mana.
But he would end up losing his Mutavault in the combat.
Sure.
Weird, right?
Yeah, he would. Of course, Andrew's in a weird position there where he wants to play his Master of Waves pre-combat.
Yeah.
To get the 2 blue devotion from Frostburn Weird locked in.
Yeah, so yeah, you're right. If he does that, then basically Andrew's in an awkward situation where if he plays it pre-combat, he loses it. If he does it after combat, then potentially he's going to have to spend mana to pump the Weird to kill the
but it looks like Shiels is just not going to go for that line at all. Plays the Lifebane Zombie, takes the lick from Frostburn Weird, and gives up a card from that Biden Facile. And down comes Master of Waves. Shields tapped out, no way to remove it immediately. Likely that Master Waves is not going to last too long, but it is going to make, I believe, 5 elementals.
Yeah, and here they come. And wow, Dave drew a Thoughtseize here. So let's see if he's able to come back from this one. He's got the removal for the Master of Waves that's in play.
Sure.
He can Thoughtseize the one in Andrew's hand.
Yeah, that Thoughtseize was huge.
Now let's see though. He'll have 2 mana left. He can activate Mutavault. And then double block the Frostburn Weird.
So he's stable on board. Yeah, one of the kind of the frustrating things for Shields about playing Lifebane Zombie there instead of leaving up removal is now, of course, he does have land to cast that Obstinate, but he can't.
Yeah.
Because he has to deal with his Master Waves. And bad news there for Shields. There is a 3rd copy of Master of Waves tucked away.
Simply too good of a card now. With Biden in play, yeah, this is just really, really tough spot for Dave right here. He's going to take one of them, but yeah, there's really not much else he can do this turn. He can Ultimate Price the Master in play, leave Mutavault and another land up, but again, Andrew's just going to be able to generate too much of an advantage.
And of course, Dave does have plenty of removal in his deck, so he is not necessarily at a loss for answers to Master of Waves.
Yeah, he's got 4 Heroes Downfall. He's got 1 Ultimate Price and 4 Bile Blight. That's really a good card in this matchup.
And there we go. Master of Waves, 2 of 3 down. But there is certainly more where that came from.
So yeah, you have to imagine Dave is probably just going to take another hit this turn and just try to hope to draw another answer for that 3rd Master of Waves.
Yeah, Mutavault off the top allows Andrew to cast Master of Waves and leave up the 1 mana for rapid hybridization if he needs it.
So it's great he didn't play the land prior to combat. Dave might have just been blocking there, hoping to basically keep Master from coming into play this turn. Unfortunately, like you said, he drew the Mutavault, so did not happen.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that was a nice little kind of subtle subterfuge there. I like that. Shiels has the read there that if he throws Mutavault in front, Andrew might be kind of tempted to use one of his 4 mana to pump the Frostburn Weird. Of course, that shuts out the Master of Waves, but he doesn't know that the land is drawn. So yeah, kind of gives up his Mutavault for no reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said no reason. Of course, he does still keep Andrew from drawing.
It was a
card
gamble.
off the,
I mean,
off the
yeah.
button. So you're giving up some damage and more crucially a card by letting it through no matter what. So it's possible that Shields just values the 1 card, against the Mutavault instead anyway.
So now Andrew's going to be able to activate Mutavault and attack with both Frostburn Weird and Mutavault, netting him 2 cards if he decides to. And then he still has a follow-up in that 2nd Frostburn Weird in his hand.
Yeah,
so.
and if he draws another land off of the 2 cards that he draws, he can actually still cast the 3rd Master of Waves.
Oh, no, I think he...
Oh, that was the
Yeah,
third
that
Master
was,
of Waves.
yeah. The Bile Blight. Bile Blight thought he's Ultimate Price with the cards that he needed to use to deal with all 3 of those.
All right. I just always assume there's another Master of Waves waiting.
Oh, there probably will be.
Yeah.
He gets to draw 2 cards, Land Master. But nope, doesn't look like he drew it. But again, he's got plenty of follow-ups.
A lot of spells there.
Yeah, Biden's really just really good against black-white mid-range.
Yeah. And there is the other boogeyman.
Pretty good card. 5/5 indestructible currently. It is turned on because of the Biden Athasa and Frostburn Weird along with the Athasa itself. So it is currently a 5/5 creature that is indestructible.
Yeah, turned on, and it's going to be pretty tricky to turn off here. The Biden can't be removed by traditional removal. It could be banishing lighted if he has access.
Yeah,
to
he has 1 copy of Deicide in his main deck, but currently he doesn't have it in his hand.
All right. So most likely the Biden is sticking, and Andrew Jessup. We know he has Tidebinder Mage. He probably has some other blue permanents as backup. So oftentimes in spots where the blue player has exactly 5 devotion, you can use combat tricks, you can use removal kind of as a trick to turn off Thassa mid-combat. But Andrew is not going to have too much trouble preventing that from happening.
And it looks like he has a couple options. He can cast Tidebinder to tap down.
I believe the game is actually over.
Yeah, he just activates Mutavault and attacks for 8. So plenty of options here for him, and that's exactly what he does. So Andrew Jessup defeats David Shiels in the first game. Mono Blue Devotion proved too powerful because of Biden of Thassa and multiple Master of Waves.
Yeah.
And when Dave cast that Lifebane Zombie early on, he saw what was coming. You saw 2 copies of Masters and a Biden of Thassa. You can't be happy with that. Obviously, Biden's the real card there. They're probably won him the game.
Yeah, I think so.
Because if he's not able to keep netting cards, Dave probably can stabilize at some point with Obsidian, and given the amount of removal that he did draw. But Biden just proves to be too good. You're able to just reload. And it's really hard for a deck like Black-White to kind of keep up with the card advantage there.
Yeah, it really is. It's weird, to say that the 3 Master of Waves kind of won the game there because they were answered very quickly. But I kind of think they did. Just because Dave was forced to answer them immediately every time one was cast.
And not commit stuff to his board, and not kind of press any advantage that he might get.
Kind of give Andrew those windows to kind of peck away and snipe a few extra cards there, and that was the advantage he needed.
Yeah, because he's not just picking out life; he's getting cards each time too. So really important there. After sideboard, looking at Andrew's sideboard, what do you think he's bringing in this matchup?
So Andrew has access to 1 Rapid Hybridization, 2 Dispel, 1 Cyclonic Rift, 2 Negate, 2 Gainsay, 3 Gainsay, 2 Dissolve, 2 Domestication, and 2 Jace Architect of Thought. Traditionally, I think that the mono blue deck brings in some amount of kind of counter spell interaction in most matchups, honestly, other than kind of other creature matchups. Here there's no exception. I fully expect them to bring the 2 Dissolves and possibly some Negates or Dispels. I'm not sure about that, but Dispel in particular, I think I like as just a cheap 1-mana answer to protect your juicier threats from Vile Blights, from Heroes Downfalls, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, even being able to just protect the Master from a Bioblade or one of those removal spells could be huge.
Yep.
So I definitely agree with you there.
Yeah, he does have 2 Domestication. That traditionally is a card that comes in against Mono Black Devotion. I don't think you actually want it against Black White. You are not going to get any Gray Merchants. You're not going to get any Night Veil Specters. You're basically just targeting maybe Pack Rat and maybe Lifebane Zombie, which those aren't the greatest of targets.
Yeah, if you can take a Night Veil Spectre, I totally agree with you. That definitely comes in. But if they don't have Night Veil Spectre, probably not good enough.
Sure.
Out of Dave's sideboard, he doesn't have that many cards for this matchup. He's got 3 copies of Doomblade, which definitely come in, and another copy of DSI, which he can bring in, which obviously is very good against Thassa, and if he thinks against Biden and Thassa as well. 1 copy of Pithing Needle, 2 copies of Underworld Connection, 1 Whip of Erebos, 3 Sin Collector, 2 Blood Barons of Viscopa, and 2 Duress. I don't really love any of those cards in this matchup. This matchup's really more tempo-oriented than anything else. Doomblade obviously is great there, and so is Deicide. Beyond that, though, I don't really think you need any of the other cards.
No, I don't either.
I think you have enough removal, plus Desecration Demon, Pack Rat can kind of win you games on their own.
Yeah.
So I think you just want to make sure you don't lose to the quick creatures, and you have enough removal to take out Master Waves. And then obviously having Deicide after sideboard is really great because you just lost to an enchantment. You lost to Biden Athasa, so I think that's certainly going to help him after board as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's kind of a question that I have had about these black decks post M15. Sign and Blood is obviously a huge gain for these black decks. Traditionally, these decks have had usually 3 and sometimes even 4 Underworld Connections in the main deck. We see Shiels is actually down to just 1 Underworld Connections. He has more on the board, but just the 1 Underworld Connections and 3 Sign and Blood is kind of the replacement.
Yeah.
I know that you want to board out your Sign and Bloods against, say, mono red aggro, against green white, against like real aggro decks, straight up aggro. Where's mono blue devotion on that spectrum?
I don't think you can afford to board out your Sign and Bloods in this matchup because it's something that allows you to kind of keep digging into your deck and drawing the removal spells you need.
Right.
Obviously against mono red, you don't want to be dealing 2 damage to yourself, but against any other matchup, I can't see boarding out Sign and Blood. It's just it's a card that you generally just don't want to board out because you cut lands in order to play this card usually, and you configured your deck a lot around this card.
Yeah.
So once you board it out, it's just not your opening hands could be worse. There's a lot of things that just can go wrong when you do that. So I don't like boarding out Sign and Blood ever, even against a tempo deck like Mono Blue Devotion. Against Mono Red, like a deck like Boss Ross, I totally understand it. Just because those 2 life could be the difference between winning and losing. But and typically though, Mono Blue Devotion doesn't beat this deck by like doing a ton of damage early on. It just kind of overwhelms you with card advantage usually, or really powerful cards like Thassa or Biden.
Yeah. Okay. So this is I guess this is your point. This deck, the mono blue devotion deck is generally trying to play trump threats, I guess, on turns kind of 4 and forward.
Yeah, like I don't love connections in this particular matchup, but Sign and Blood is actually great because you want to be able to make your mana drops.
Right.
So being able to go turn 2 Sign and Blood to make sure that you can hit land on 3 and 4 is huge.
Right.
And it also helps. It helps you mulligan less because if you have like land, Sign and Blood, that can be a keeper even if you don't have a 3rd land.
Yeah.
Especially if it's like a temple land, Sign and Blood. So I think it just sort of helps increase the number of hands that are keepable and make sure that you can make your land drops, which is something against a tempo deck you need to be able to do.
Sure. And did Andrew take a mulligan there?
It looks like Andrew is mulliganing to 6. Dave is keeping his 7-card hand, so things starting off pretty okay for Dave in game 2. Being down a game, you don't mind it when your opponent has to mulligan a little bit.
No.
He's happy with his opening. I think I did see a Deicide in his hand along with the Duress, so it looks like he did bring in Duress. A card that I don't particularly love in this matchup, but maybe he just thinks that there's going to be a lot of permission cards after sideboard. Let's see what we have here. Andrew looks like he's going to keep. Oh, nope, he's going to mulligan. So Andrew going down to 5 cards here. Wow. So Dave Shiels in not looking too bad here to maybe try to even up this match. This is a do or die match for him. He's going to have to win this if he wants to have a shot at making top 8. Both players are an X and 1.
Yeah, this is a rough spot for Andrew for sure.
If they can win here, both players are going to draw. So Andrew on a mulligan to 5, anything can happen. He does have he certainly has the cards that can kind of get him back into this. So, Biden Athasa can certainly get him back into the card advantage window. But yeah, obviously at 5 cards against a deck like Dave's deck, which so much removal and thought seize.
Yeah, you
can't be happy about that.
Yeah, you don't want to be down cards against a deck that is so well equipped to trade you card for card in the early game.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you start with 5 cards, of course you can be looking at 3 spells, 2 lands, which is totally reasonable. It's kind of ideal, for a 5-card hand. But if Dave just goes like, Thought Seize into removal spell, then you have a single spell with which to progress. Or you get a draw step. You get a fresh one each turn. But that's some serious pressure. Yeah, that's probably the major strength of these black mid-range decks in Standard is they punish mulligans so well, I think.
Thoughtseize is just too... I mean, a lot of people, Kibler talks about this all the time, and Patrick Sullivan, obviously, how good Thoughtseize is. It's just too good of a card. And that's part of the reason that mono black, or even now we're seeing black-white mid-range, it's part of the reason they're just so good is because Thoughtseize is probably the most powerful card in the format. Thoughtseize or Mutable, probably one of the two,
Well, those are the two.
Yeah.
And of course, these black decks get to play both.
Exactly.
And in a sense, I think they've kind of warped around both. They've maybe not warped so much because that's the power of those 2 cards is that it's relatively easy to build around them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that where possible, these black decks have been built to take advantage of both those cards.
Also, a slight victory here for Andrew. Duress misses, so Dave technically mulligan to 6 as well.
There we go. Kind of force a mulligan there. And Duress, that wasn't a card we actually expected Dave to bring in, but the more I think about it, actually, because we know that Andrew is going to bring in likely some counter magic, some dissolves, maybe some dispels or negates, I think Duress gains a lot of value because of that.
Yep, definitely makes sense. And Andrew doesn't have that bad of a hand if he can get mana. I mean, he does have the powerful cards he needs to kind of win. Unfortunately, he just does have 1 land right now, so.
Yeah, and often when you mull to 5, you kind of have to make that commitment where you'll see hands that, like maybe you'll see 4 lands and kind of a good spell, and you're like, well, I'll keep this. Obviously, I need to draw spells in order to actually progress. Or as we saw Andrew do, you'll keep a hand that's like, these are very good spells. I just need to hit a couple lands in a row. Those are risks you have to take when your back's kind of against the wall. An average 4-card hand is not going to be better than that, I don't think.
Yeah. So it was possible that we could have seen a typical Pat Rat game. Unfortunately, Dave doesn't have a 3rd land, so he just has to cast the 2nd Pat Rat and attack for 2, which
kind of the same thing,
bad,
right?
Yeah. If you can get a 3rd land, things can get really nasty real quickly. But Andrew did get a 2nd land, and now Frostburn is going to come down and evolve that Cloudfin Raptor.
Yep. So he is going to hold the ground at least for a turn from those rats. But of course, the 3rd land will allow those rats to quickly grow out of control, enabling that as well as, of course, any number of other shenanigans.
Yeah, a top deck Mutavault would be pretty ideal right now for Dave.
Pretty ideal for both players, honestly.
Yeah.
Again, the nature of Mutavault. Nobody is complaining about it. Well, nobody's complaining about drawing one.
Yeah. So Dave fails to draw a 3rd land yet again. He does have a lot of removal, though. He looks like he has at least 1 copy of Bioblight. He has a Thoughtseize in his hand as well.
Yeah.
He knows what's in Jessup's hand for the most part.
Yep, and knows there's no real urgency to casting that Thoughtseize this turn. The Master Waves are the real problem, I think.
Yeah.
Actually, no, sorry, there is a Thassa, so...
Well, he does have a Deicide in his hand, so...
Oh, right, okay.
So I think he's probably okay with Thassa resolving.
Sure. He actually maybe wants Andrew to draw that 3rd land.
Yeah.
Okay. The other decision there, of course, was you're obviously going to attack with your pack rats. The block that you fully expect to happen means that both of those creatures are targets for Bioblight. So the other kind of reason to tank there is which card is more important, which one do I want to get rid of. And I think I like Shiels' decision of clearing out the blocker for the pack rats. Cloudfin, of course, can also block, but not nearly as well.
Yeah. And plus, it's 1 less devotion, potentially, so. Andrew doesn't draw a 3rd land here, but he does have a Frostburn Weird that he can commit to the board, so he gets another blocker, and Cloudfin Raptor evolves yet again, so. Cloudfin Raptor at 2/3, Frostburn Weird at 1/4, so. Good shape here if he wants to kind of hold off some blockers. maybe banking on Dave not drawing a third land yet again.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. I was about to say, I think I like the Cloudfin just attacking here. You know, even if you just pass the turn, like you're preventing two damage. But
and if he draws a land, it doesn't even matter.
Yeah, the thing is, yeah, if Shiels draws a land, then your play looks terrible. And if he doesn't draw a land, he draws a spell, which could easily be one of the many spells that cost 2 or less that interact with you unfavorably. And you have to assume that he likely has some more movement in his hand, some of it maybe costs 2. Yeah, I like being aggressive here and getting in your hits where you can.
So with the third land here, Dave can attack with both the pack rats and then make another pack rat. So he'll have 9 points worth of power on board. Obviously, can't really go wrong with just activating pack rat a lot of times, especially if your opponent's been stalled on 2 mana.
Yeah, that was the lesson that it took everyone a little while to learn. When in doubt, make a rat. When you're not in doubt, still make a rat. If you think you shouldn't make a rat, you're probably wrong. Make a rat. The one exception here would be, and of course he doesn't need to do this at sorcery speed, or on his own turn rather.
Well, he gets 1 more point of damage, basically.
Yeah, he gets 1 point of damage, but he could also leave up Deicide.
Yeah.
So he has the option of either Deicide Thassa or make a rat at Andrew's end step, depending on if Andrew draws the third land. But he is going to go for the in-combat activation, get some extra damage there. I guess the presence of Thoughtseize in his hand actually makes it a little better to be able to make that decision at sorcery speed, because you can spend all of your 3 mana making a rat this turn, and the next turn if you don't draw the land but Andrew does and he gets that Thassa in play, then you can spend all of your mana on the next turn playing Thoughtseize and Deicide.
Yeah, so you're maximizing your mana every turn.
Yep, and getting an extra point.
Yep.
So all the gravy for Dave Shiels.
So Andrew doesn't draw a third land yet again, but he did draw Judge's Familiar, so he can get something into play this turn. Got that Night Veil Spectre, got a Thassa, got a Master of the Waves, just not any mana.
It's weird. We're almost getting to the point where when Andrew does draw that third land, it's better for him to cast Night Veil Spectre than Thassa.
Yeah.
I think he's gonna, his best hope of winning this game, I think at this stage, is to buy whatever time he can on the ground and just be attacking with flyers and just kind of try and peck Shields to death. Having said that, I obviously would have attacked with that Cloudfin Raptor. That's the plan that I'm on.
If that's your line, you have to attack
yes,
there.
But that is not the plan that Andrew Jessup's on. Now, I don't think my plan is a likely one to succeed.
Oh, yeah, I mean, obviously, given Andrew's situation, given what he had to mulligan the 5 and fails to draw land here, and he's facing down multiple pack rats, I mean, you take what line you can. That doesn't mean you're going to win.
Right. Yeah. And Shields gonna take his time. He does have the advantage with these rats, but gonna take his time, kind of processing the situation, make sure there's nothing tricky lying in wait. The 1 mana sitting there untapped for Andrew Jessup could possibly signal rapid hybridization, so he has to worry about that. Just kind of shrinking his rats mid-combat. He actually knows about rapid hybridization, right? Is that one of the cards that he saw with the Thoughtseize?
I don't believe so, because no, he would have taken it with duress.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're right. Okay.
So yeah, I'm not sure what Dave's thinking about. I mean, I think it's a pretty straightforward attack here.
Yeah, there's a possibility that, so if Andrew with the 1 mana makes his Frostburn Weird a 2/3, and then no, it doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
Never mind. Yeah, Shields may be kind of going through the permutations of what double blocks and various gang blocks allow him to. Does he pass without attacking there?
Yes. So
interesting.
Obviously concerned about rapid hybridization.
Okay, and I think rapid hybridization is the one that does it. That's what he's worried about. Yeah. So if he does have rapid and he gets to so Shields attacks with all his creatures and Andrew rapid hybridizations his own Judge's Familiar, that evolves the Cloudfin Raptor. And puts and allows Andrew to kind of double block 1 rat, block another one, and that knocks 2 rats out even with the activation. So
but then you're still left with 2 rats, and you basically killed Andrew's board, right?
No, whatever you double block with, presumably like the Frostburn and the.
Oh, okay.
The
So basically, yeah. So basically, the Raptor and whatever you double one of the 2, probably the Frostburn Resistance.
Yeah, you'd get to keep one of your creatures against 2 rats, and Shiels, but that's with Shiels spending his whole turn activating a rat.
Yeah.
Or activating Pack Rat. Which, again, is not a terrible spot for Shiels to be. But if he just waits a turn, that gets, activates Pack Rat one more time, has 4/4s threatening to be 5/5s rather than 3/3s threatening to be 4/4s. His attack is a lot safer. If he just makes a rat this turn and then untaps and does the same thing again, I think he is in a position where he doesn't even care about a rapid hybridization.
Yep.
And of course, Andrew did find the third land. He does play Thassa. So you don't have to worry about rapid hybridization this turn. Shiels is in perfectly fine shape to just make the rat and untap and go nuts.
Yeah, particularly if Andrew attacks here with the Cloud from Raptor, which it looks like he's thinking about.
Yeah, Andrew kind of has to weigh the value of 3 damage, which is substantial, with the possibility that he's just gonna die if he makes this attack. And actually, I think he might.
No, because, he dropped him down to 12, and then he makes a rat at the end of the turn. He still has 2 blockers.
Yeah, maybe not die, but
he'll take 8.
I think the game may actually go out of reach at this point, because Shiels can untap, deicide the Thassa, and kind of force some really uncomfortable blocks for Andrew Jessup.
Yeah, I like casting deicide first. And then attacking with everything. Judge's Familiar chump blocks, then you can actually cast Thoughtseize to take out a Master.
That's if the Judge's Familiar actually does chump block.
Oh wow!
Interesting. So he actually does he's gonna go for the Thoughtseize first. He may have drawn a land.
But I believe it's a temple though.
Oh.
So it's still fine though, because if he casts Deicide and Judge's Familiar gets sacrificed, then the devotion gets turned off.
Sure.
So he'll end up dropping down to 1.
True.
However, the Thassa will still be in play. So it's going to be a little. It's interesting because the Thoughtseize could have for sure resolved anyway if he just cast Deicide first.
Yeah.
And then attacks. Andrew likely blocks with the Judge's Familiar, but we'll see how this plays out.
Yeah, you're right. I think I do like the Deicide line first. Not going to go for Deicide at all. And this, as you said, forces the issue. One way or another, that Judge's Familiar is getting out of play, and that does turn off Thassa. So the lanes are cleared. 16 power worth of rat coming at you. And no decisions here for Andrew. Only has 1 play that keeps him alive. Throw Frostburn Weird under the bus and go to 1.
Yeah, and obviously this is still a reasonable situation for Dave. The only thing is now he doesn't have an answer to the Master of the Waves currently. So if Andrew top decks a land, he might have enough whites to survive 1 turn. 1, 2, 3.
He has a perfectly fine answer to Master of Waves. Just turn all your rats sideways.
Oh yeah, but I'm saying if Dave he's also chipping away at his life total with that Cloudton Raptor, so runner Master of Waves and Dave not drawing anything could theoretically be dangerous.
That's fair.
And you're still scrying each turn, so it's a little riskier now because you left that Thassa in play. But either way,
but Andrew's at 3 lands. He doesn't have another one in hand because he just Thoughtseized him.
Yeah.
So the scry can either find Andrew the 4th land or the Master, but not both.
Yeah. So Dave Shiels is able to win the second game a lot closer than I think we kind of thought it would be. I mean, he stalled on land and he ended up having 4 pack rats in play against basically nothing. But well played game from Dave there. And now we're in game 3. Andrew's going to get to be on the play this time. And, hopefully neither player has to mulligan. But I feel like, I don't know if I really know who's favoring in this matchup because both games seemed a little lopsided.
Yeah.
We had a mulligan on one side, we had Mana Stall on the other in game 1. So I'm not sure I know who's really favored. I mean, both decks looked pretty solid, and I think maybe it's just one of those matchups where it's like 50-50.
It's close. The black versus blue devotion decks have been close all season. I've heard arguments on both sides that the matchup is very easy. I think a lot of it kind of is context dependent.
I think whoever you talk to, you usually have a different opinion.
Whoever has played, if anyone who has played one side of it a lot and has a lot of experience and kind of has thought about each individual piece of their 75 and how it works in the matchup, they're going to say that they're a good favorite. I think on either side,
Yeah,
the reality is, I think this matchup is it's very initiative dependent.
Yeah.
I think the die roll matters a lot because of Thoughtseize out of the black decks and because of Cloud Fin and Judge's Familiar out of the blue decks. I think both decks play out a lot better when they are on the play.
Yeah, because I've seen so many different types. I've seen this matchup play out so many different ways. You know, I've seen the Mono Blue Devotion deck have like a really quick tempo start and just put so much pressure early on that it didn't matter. Then there's nothing the Mono Black deck could do.
Yeah.
I've seen other games where Mono Blue kind of grinds them out with Biden Athasa and Jaces.
Yeah.
And then I've seen the other side where Mono Black just gets this early pack rat and they just keep activating pack rats. I've seen games where they just win with removal and Desecration Demon. You know, Desecration Demon can be very problematic for Mono Blue. So it really can go either way, I think.
Yeah. Both of these decks, and this is to their credit, I think why these have been more or less the two decks to beat all season. They have a very strong, multifaceted approach. They do have strong, aggressive early games. You know, the blue deck, of course, is kind of aggressive in nature because of all its one drops. The black deck is more aggressive, is kind of like a one-card package. You know, if it pack rats you, then it's the aggro. Mm-hmm. But both decks also have fairly strong card advantage engines going late.
Yeah, and I have to say, I really like both of these lists that we're seeing here today too. I love Dave Shiels' list. We saw it earlier. The only thing I thought maybe he should try Liliana in his main deck over one of the two Obsidots. But Andrew's deck list I like too because I really am not a huge fan of the Domestication in the main deck. And he's just playing 3 Hybridization, which I think is probably the best spell that you can play in this deck because it really answers all the problem cards for you.
Yeah.
Whereas Domestication can a lot of times just be dead or not really effective.
Yeah, Domestication looks really, really impressive when it works and just looks clunky and pointless in other matchups.
Yeah.
Sphinx's Revelation decks, Esper Control, blue-white, red. Those are kind of the headliners for decks that Domestication is bad against. If you expect a lot of that, I think it is definitely a week where you want to leave your Domestication at the sideboard. It's possible that Andrew kind of thought there was going to be a resurgence of Control. Mm-hmm. And then black-white, actually, as opposed to mono-black. You know, again, I mentioned against mono-black, you actually have Gray Merchants, you have Night Veil Specters likely, and Lifebane Zombies. So you have like additional. It's one of the other main, sometimes the other board. Like, it's hard to say for sure, but there will be more targets, I think, generally for Domestication out of a full-blown mono-black Devotion deck. Mm-hmm. But if you think there's going to be more black-whites, then Domestication gets a lot worse.
And I think the format's just kind of diverse enough where I don't know if Domestication is going to be good for you, majority of the time.
Yeah, and even against decks that obviously have a lot of creatures, Domestication, it might be worse than Rapid Hybridization. Mm-hmm. Against, for example, Boss Slide, against the Tom Ross deck. Domestication, 4 mana is a million.
Yeah.
You're never going to Domestication for value. Or if you do, the game was already over anyway.
Hybridization just always seems really good in this deck. Like, whenever I see it getting cast, either aggressively or to save one of your creatures or, like, gain value out of one of your creatures dying, I've always seen it be really good. And I think it kind of just goes with the style of the deck that you're playing. Whereas Domestication just seems, it doesn't seem to fit the style of the deck. Like, it always seems out of place to me, It's a little too clunky for my taste.
Well, I wouldn't say that.
I mean, compared to Hybridization, I mean.
Sure. It doesn't feel out of place to me at all. Like, it is the most powerful card in your deck in some matchups.
In some matchups, yeah.
Right. It's definitely a sideboard card in the sense that,
but even in the Mono Blue Mirror, I think that sometimes it's not the best card because, you're bringing in gainsays and your opponent also has Hybridization. So sometimes you basically just can't afford to tap out for 4 mana in the mirror match.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's always been my problem with that card.
Yeah, I agree. But there are a lot of haymakers in the Mono Blue Mirror. You have to worry about Master. You have to worry about FASA. You have to worry about gainsays, kind of playing the chicken game. Who blinks first. It's part of that puzzle, but it's not the trump. There isn't one single trump, I don't think, in the Mono Blue Mirror. Mm-hmm. Really, the thing about Domestication is that it kind of locks out a lot of tier 2 strategies. Domestication's absurdly good against green-white, for example.
Okay.
Against Naya, against kind of the various white aggro decks. If you ever Domestication a Voice of Resurgence, the game's over. You have won that one.
So Jessup keeps his 5 cards hands and he leads 5-card hand, and he leaves with a Judge's Familiar here. And Dave has the bane of everyone's existence, a Thoughtseize, but he's not going to cast it, obviously, because it's Judge's Familiar.
And yeah, as we've seen, being on the play, huge here for Andrew Jessup. Gets that Judge's Familiar out ahead of the Thoughtseize. So kind of forces a kind of a mini time walk effect on Dave. He can Thoughtseize this turn.
He also drew a Duress, but we saw how that played out last time, so he's going to leave with Thoughtseize, and he gets a Bident, which is a huge card in this matchup.
Wow. We missed a couple mulligans there for Andrew, I guess. I didn't realize that he was...
Oh, yeah, down to 5.
Yeah, down to 5 again. And there goes his action.
So looks like he has another Judge's Familiar, and he still has that Mutavault in his hand as well. So he's got some power in play, but again, without that Bident, it's going to be hard to kind of come back to this.
Yeah. Yeah, and these Judge's Familiars, they're an important piece of the puzzle. They're kind of a synergistic little bit, but they're not power players on their own.
Yeah, the only good thing for Andrew is that Dave currently doesn't have access to white mana, so that's good. And we know that he doesn't have the 4th land in his hand, so maybe if Andrew can draw a Thassa and kind of get something going, he could get right back into this, but he's going to need to draw it fast.
Yep.
I'd say Thassa or Bident are basically the 2 cards he needs. I don't think there's anything else that can help him, really.
Yeah, Bident would be fantastic here. Yeah, Andrew does have, he has 2 Judge's Familiars, which sort of exposes him to Bile Blight, but of course Andrew can always sacrifice one, the one that's being targeted to leave one back. Dave wants to use his removal here, I think, but it feels underpowered. It feels kind of like a waste.
But I like using it there because, again, you don't want to lose the game with removal spells in your hand.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And it could get to the point where your hand is clogged, especially because you only have 3 lands currently. And he doesn't draw a 4th land again. So you got to use your spells, even if it doesn't seem appropriate.
Yeah, I agree. Dave is certainly going to win the game if he draws land in a timely fashion.
Yeah, because he just gets that Desecration Demon into play, and then short of a Rapid Hybridization, that should be good enough.
Yeah, a Desecration Demon, a card that is kind of known for losing to kind of a creeping advantage from the opponent. You know, if Andrew gets pecks away, gets in his damage here, and then just actually gets enough creatures on board to be able to attack past the Desecration Demon, that's one of the ways that Shiels can lose here. So, yeah, as you mentioned, I think using removal every chance you get is huge. Andrew attacking with that Cloudfin Raptor, kind of a giveaway that there was a Rapid Hybridization involved. But it's possible that Shiels just kind of reads it for a bluff, or just not really any way he can play around it anyway.
Yeah, Jessup's going to do that attack no matter what. I mean, and Dave doesn't draw a land yet again. Wow, so this is the situation where you got to kind of wonder. He's already at 13, and life keeps chipping away. Yeah. And Andrew has a lot of live draws. I mean, he's only got 3 lands, so basically Thassa is probably the best card he can draw right here. But we know Dave has a Duress in his hand, which is basically not very useful anymore. Yeah. But he has a lot of removal spells, but, every time he misses a land, he's giving Andrew another turn to draw Thassa.
So I'm going to go ahead and use that Bile Blight on his own turn to avoid any further complications from Rapid Hybridizations and other like spells. For example, a Dissolve off the top for Jessup would be very good here. And
looks like he's going to use he's maybe thinking about using a Hero's Downfall instead.
Yeah, that's going to play into Judge's Familiar, but
he's going to play Lifebane Zombie, and I like this play. I like getting Lifebane. It's basically a way to deal with the 3/3.
Yeah, it's a removal spell in its own way, and it lets you use all your mana in a way that in a way that doesn't play into Judge's Familiar.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I'm curious here, actually, again, the turn that Andrew attacked with the 0/1 Cloudfin Raptor, does that set off enough alarm bells in your head, maybe, that you actually just take the damage? If Andrew plays the 1 card that he's drawn post-combat, then you have a green light to use your removal spell. But if not, you can then Duress to clear out the Rapid Hybridization and then use
Yeah, that's definitely true. Unfortunately for Dave, Andrew top-decked a Cyclonic Rift, so he bounced the Lightbane Zombie, and he was able to attack in with the 3/3. So attacks for 5, dropping Dave down to 8.
Yeah.
So suddenly, something that looked so good for Dave, because he's stalling on lands, really in a tough spot and draws another Lifebane zombie. So stuck on 3 lands here for several turns.
Yeah, this is rough. And honestly, I think Shiels still makes the same play. Just plops that zombie right back into play. He's going to consider his options a little.
I don't think he's in panic mode just yet,
No.
but yeah, you know, you have to be concerned. You have to be starting to sweat a little bit here. Especially if Andrew draws even another creature. I mean,
just anything.
Anything.
Any spell.
And attacks are 2, dropping Dave down now to 6, and there it is. Oh God, here's that Thassa.
Yeah, that was not what he. That was what Shiels definitely did not want to see.
And now finally Dave draws a 4th land, but now what are you going to do? I mean, you have Desecration Demon. That's really not an ideal play here.
Yeah, the 4th land lets him cast Desecration Demon, which does nothing. Yeah, because that Thassa allows the creatures to be unblockable anyway. He's going to play it. Okay, so this is an uncomfortable spot for Shiels for sure.
Well, the scary thing here is, I think if he draws a 2 devotion creature, he could actually cast it, turn on Thassa, and then attack with everything.
Yeah.
And, well, no, that will only really do anything.
Right. I think the reason he didn't attack with the Frog Lizard last turn is because he wanted a creature that he could. He wanted a bigger creature that he could force through damage with the Thassa with. So this turn he can do that. After that, removal spells start to complicate things.
Yeah.
So you really don't want to be spending your turn activating Thassa here.
I mean, it would be fantastic if he can cast Rapid Hybridization on his Judge's Familiar, grow his. Oh well, no, he's at 6, so it won't be enough. But
yeah, something like a Tidebinder Mage off the top would turn on the Thassa, allow him to attack with it. I think that is probably a game-winning.
But I think even just making your 3/3 unblockable might just be, even if he doesn't draw a creature here,
it's not the worst play.
A 4th land would be fine too. I mean,
I believe Nightveil Spectre is the draw, so I think that's what I caught a flash of there. It might have been Cyclonic Rift.
Okay, so what he might be thinking here is, do I play Nightveil Spectre and then sacrifice my 3/3 and attack in with everything? You kill a Lifebane zombie because the Thassa is going to have to get blocked, and you drop him down to 4, but you lose a 3/3.
I think I like that play, but he's looking like tapping 2 mana there. I think he could be activating with Thassa, but
yeah. So let's see what he decides to do here. Not sure what he drew for the turn.
Right.
Could be a creature, or it could be activating Thassa right here. And it looks like it is a creature. It's a weird.
Okay.
So that's a pretty good draw there because it evolves a Raptor.
Yes.
So now he's going to be able to drop Dave down to 3.
Yeah, that draw is huge. That turns on the Thassa and lets him actually attack with it. So Shiels has to throw that Lifebane zombie under the bus. And suddenly, Shiels is in a very, very tight spot.
And so let's see here. He does have, we know he has several pieces of removal in his hand. I think he has at least an ultimate price, maybe another Bile Blight as well.
And he has multiple Bile Blights.
Yeah, so he did draw a land. He's going to have to play that land untapped. He's going to pay 2 if he wants to play it untapped. But
it looks like Hero's Downfall and 2 Bile Blights are the removal options here. And he can only cast one of those unless he falls to 1 from the Godless Strike. So currently, he is dead to all of Andrew's creatures. Well, he's dead to just the Frostburn and the Thassa. If he goes to 1, he's actually just dead to all 4 of the creatures. So I don't think he wants to do that. He agrees. He's just going to play the Godless Sign tapped. This lets him leave up mana for Bile Blight plus Mutavault. Mutavault's not great here. It's basically just a chump block for the Frostburn weird. But it does buy him the turn he needs, and it doesn't crucially shock him to do it.
Yeah, Dave, I think, is really hoping that Andrew scries his card to the bottom and then hits just the land.
Yeah.
That he's going to keep, and it's Mutavault. So that's not the worst card for Dave, though. I mean, obviously, it's something that can't evolve a Cloudson Raptor, but it can get sacrificed to tap down Desecration Demon.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I would have kept that Mutavault. That Andrew puts into play. It looks like he is going to activate it in an attempt to sacrifice it to Demon, but there's actually no window for him to do that without exposing it to Bile Blight. He could Bile Blight the Mutavault But I think if he does that, he actually is just dead.
Frostburn Weird comes down. Yeah. So let's see here. Because the judge is familiar, it kind of complicates things.
Yeah. This is a very close game. Yeah, I feel like Shiels was so close to actually just kind of turning the corner and just being in a dominating position, but just could not find the land that he needed for just a few turns too long. So and now the game just kind of like slipped away from him, I think.
So basically, he has to probably cast BioBlight on the Cloudfin Raptor and hope that Andrew doesn't sack the Judge's Familiar, because then he can activate the Mutavault and block. But if Andrew does sack so if Andrew sacks the Judge's Familiar to counter it, and Dave would have to pay 1, so he can't activate his Mutavault. So then he's dead.
So now
and he has enough mana to pump his Frostburn Weird to 3 at least.
Right. All right. So the lane is cleared. All creatures can come swinging. Of course, Shiels can BioBlight any of the blue creatures in play other than Frostburn Weird.
Yeah, he has to activate Mutavault first and then block, and then cast BioBlight, targeting the Cloudfin Raptor. That's how he lives this turn.
Right. Of course, Frostburn, the only creature he can block. He can block Facet too, but
hopefully turn.
In theory, the Facet will not be a creature by the time damage is dealt, or at least Shiels hopes so. If Facet's a creature, I think the game ends.
Yeah.
So Andrew can actually make the Frostburn Weird unblockable before blockers are declared. I think that does it.
But is that enough?
Yeah, well, he can
1, 2, 3.
Right.
Yeah.
He BioBlights the Cloudfin.
Yep, you're right.
And then 3 damage gets through. I'm trying to think if there's some way that he can get around that by. I don't see any way.
Yep, that was it. Wow, Andrew Jessup was able to defeat Dave Shiels despite mulliganing to 5 in the 3rd game. Dave Shiels just stuck on 3 mana, very frustrating. He had a handful of removal spells, multiple Desecration Demons, just couldn't get there. And Andrew just kept chipping away with Judge's Familiars, used the timely Rapid Hybridization. Just really, really well played game from Jessup there.